So, hello there, folks. This is Tenacious Earl, sitting about a block away from my church where I am kind of in the midst of serving, but I have a little bit of downtime. We are required, I attend church to go to a service, but we do have multiple services, and so I've already sat through the sermon once, and so I don't really need to again. But I will say that towards the end of it, or maybe just during the announcements, we have things during our church service where there's like a little bit of time. I had a little idea pop into head as far as a way to change the way that I do. So one of the things with second season that is currently on my mind is that I roll for personnel on every play, and it takes a little bit of extra time to figure out which personnel are in there. And it also takes me a little bit of time ahead of time to kind of come up with these charts that say what personnel I would be using. And that's um, also, I guess the other thing about second season that it would be nice is that, like, it's tough to tell. You don't really have defensive subs, but like defense will often have personnel changes. If you watch the NFL, usually a team would have a rotation of maybe 5 or 6 defensive linemen, maybe even 7, depending on whether you're using a 3 or 4 man front. Um, that would, and I mean, in a 3 man front, even that outside linebacker tends to be, there's a outside linebacker that is responsible for the rush. Tends to be more of a defensive lineman, sort of a hybrid type. But in any regard, I guess what I'm saying is that there's often changes there. But so I'm trying to develop. I keep trying to develop, and I have in a way developed a way to change personnel or to decide on every play what personnel there is. It just seems to add a little bit extra time, and I'm looking for ways to try and streamline it. And so what I'm thinking is instead of doing that, each of the team sheets, if you get the game, you will see that you get it when you buy a season, you get every team's ratings. So it's got sort of a depth chart, and each player in the depth chart has ratings for run pass and also some other alternative, like their average yards receiving, or the quarterbacks have different. But quarterback, you're not going to do much change unless there's an injury, or in case you just say I want to go with the backup because starter isn't very good. So my thought is, because on these team sheets, it basically gives you a depth chart. It's got each position labeled, and there are 5 eligible receivers on a team. So you have a quarterback. Quarterback's an eligible receiver too, but for all intents and purposes, let's not focus on the quarterback right now. We have the primary tailback. In most formations, let's say it's a one back set with 2 tight ends and 2 wide receivers. That's kind of a modern formation. Now, most teams don't use a fullback anymore. Most teams don't use 2 tailback sets. Usually it's going to be a 1 with 2 receivers, 2 tight ends, maybe 1 with a tight end and 3 receivers. But anyway, a 6-sided die gives you the opportunity for. Here's the other theory that I have. A lot of teams will only do a sub. They may sub in for let's say a series of downs. So you get a first down. A team might say, okay, I'm going to spell the running back here, or I'm going to give I'm going to give my wide receiver a break this series, or something like that, as opposed to every play in and out kind of situation. So what I'm thinking is that at the beginning of a series, I would roll a d6, and if it's 1 or 2, you would change the tailback, because that's probably the most substituted position, I would say, within the starting offense is going to be your running back. Running backs tend to get dinged up, and so teams have learned that it's also good to kind of have a change of pace. You might have your primary running back which is let's take Buffalo for example, because Buffalo is one of the teams that's in the league. LaShawn McCoy is a shiftier, speedier kind of back. Not fast, but he does have some speed, but I wouldn't call him the fastest running back out there, but he's elusive. But then in this season, I think they have Mike Gillislee, who is a bit more of a bruiser. Not like bruiser like, try to remember the guy from the Jerome Bettis or anything like that. Not of that mold, but he's more of a north-south kind of guy. LaShawn McCoy is going to be an east-west. So, and again, this is another positive for doing this. And let's just stick to the running back for the moment, because when I do this every play, I say inside run and I roll. If it then shows me for that play that I have to take the running back that is not as good at an inside run or not as good at an outside run, then I've basically hemmed myself into picking a play that doesn't really fit the best personnel I have out there. If instead I know what personnel is going into a drive, then I can say, okay, well, I've got LaShawn McCoy. I'll take him outside because he's, I don't know, I haven't looked at their ratings. I don't have the ratings right in front of me, but it makes more sense to me that if you're going to run a play, that you know what personnel you're going to have out there, as opposed to just blindly calling a play and say, okay, well, So this is my thought, is that, again, I start a series by rolling a 6-sided die, and at that point, that sets who, if there's going to be a substitution, it is. And I thought about doing 1 through 5 would be each position. 1 would be the tailback, 2 would be the number 1 wide receiver, 3 would be the number 2 wide receiver, 4 would be the tight end, 5 would be sort of this either second tight end / fullback / third wide receiver. It's labeled SB on the sheet. It's sort of a catch-all where they put guys that are formation specific. And then 6 would be no substitutions. It'd be full offense. And I would even consider just saying, you know what, the first set of downs in the game for each team would be the first offense, and you wouldn't start doing substitutions until the second one. That's kind of where I'm going. Now, I'm in the midst of a game right now, and I'm not sure. I may consider just restarting the whole, but I don't want to, because then it would look like I'm doing this because Buffalo didn't win, and I don't really want to go there. I think that makes more sense to have a protocol where because I'm being the offensive coordinator. The defense is basically set by a random roll, but in the style that I'm doing this, I'm the offensive coordinator. For the offensive coordinator to call a run play, or let's say you now the other thing is, so here's my other thought is, so at the beginning of the series you call, you roll it, and that's what your sub is, and so you go from the depth chart, and then what you would do from there is you could choose either the spread or heavy. That would be the one change you could make in it. I suppose you could go back to the full-blown top choice set, I think, on third down. I think that's where I would change, is either if you get to second longer than 10 or third and longer than 5, it would be acceptable for the team to choose another set, either their first choice set or to go with a 3 wide receiver, maybe even 4 wide receiver. But that's things that, again, I kind of need to pre-design what those formations are, so that way I'm saying, okay, this down, I'm sending this personnel, and this is the call. We're going to do the long pass, and then we figure out what the defense is being run by the defensive coordinator, that's done by random D6 roll, and then we go from there. So that's kind of where I'm going. If you have thoughts on this, leave. I think, and then I would still use a D20 to flesh out where the pass goes. But even with that, I could even think at that point, if you know which personnel's out there, you could say, okay, I want to throw at. Now, you have to be careful, because you can't just keep throwing to one receiver. If you're playing head-to-head against somebody, that's one thing. But if you're doing a solo game, that's a whole nother ball of wax. But leave your comments. I'm interested to hear what other people do. I'm not. This is absolutely not a professing to know that this would be best, but when it comes right down to it, we're all looking for the best ways to make it work and make it right, and or as close to right as possible. There probably aren't really any right ways to do it, but um, anyway, that's where I'm standing, and I thought it would just be fun to come out here and do this for a minute while I'm just kind of sitting around messing around with the different social media that are out there and just reading pretty much garbage. So anyway, let me know what you think, and we'll see you a little later this afternoon with some more second season. It'll be Tennessee at Jacksonville. Jacksonville currently has a 7-0 lead, so see you then.